Jamie Harrison, the latest Quinnipiac poll now shows these numbers higher. It shows Graham at 48, Harrison at 48, holding in a tie in South Carolina. We just talked about the fundraising surge that some Democratic organizations have seen. Have you experienced any extra fundraising surge over the weekend?
Well, Lawrence, we've gotten tremendous support, and we really appreciate it. And, folks can continue to help us. Go to jamieharrison.com. But what we are doing, Lawrence, is focusing on the issues here in South Carolina. Lindsey Graham is too busy trying to be important, trying to get in front of all the cameras so that people can see how great he is, how he doesn't keep his word. But I'm focused on the issues that people care about here, the things that people are suffering with in the state. Because he's not doing his job, I need to do it for him. And I'm focusing on those issues right now here in South Carolina.
So 4 years ago, when Lindsey Graham was running against Donald Trump, he said things like, I think Donald Trump is a con man. I think he would destroy the Republican Party. There's just a long list. I could just keep reading them. I don't want to use your time that way. How does he explain his complete reversal, complete flip-flop on all of those statements in South Carolina?
Well, the answer to everything for Lindsey Graham is Brett Kavanaugh. That is his go-to answer. He thinks that is his greatest goal.
Let me just stop you there for a second. He flip-flopped on Donald Trump and was playing golf with him long before Brett Kavanaugh.
Well, Lawrence, one of the things that my grandfather told me is a man is only as good as his word. And I would not use those type of descriptive adjectives to describe anybody unless I actually meant it. And if I meant it, then I probably wouldn't be golfing with that person the next day. And it just shows you that Lindsey Graham is only focused on his own relevance and his own political power. He doesn't care about the things that people in South Carolina are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. And that's why we need to send him home. It is far time for South Carolina to have a senator who's going to fight for her instead of fight against her. But Lindsey Graham is just focused on touching the emperor's cloth. And we just need somebody who's going to roll up their sleeves and do the work that the people of South Carolina sent them to Washington to do.
What is the single most important issue you're trying to talk to South Carolina voters about?
It's about health care. Here in my state, we've had about 250,000 people who don't have health care here because the Republicans like Lindsey have refused to expand Medicaid. 4 of our rural hospitals have closed over the past few years. Even just 2 years ago, 14 of our 46 counties had no OBGYN. And there are grave healthcare disparities all across the state. And then you got Lindsey, who came up with this bill, Graham-Cassidy, which doesn't protect folks with pre-existing conditions when almost a quarter of the state has pre-existing conditions. This guy is just, he's the worst. And that's why we need to send him home.
And Senator Graham, as Chairman Graham of the Judiciary Committee, is going to try to send to the Supreme Court a new justice who will vote against and eliminate the Affordable Care Act.
Well, what I find disturbing, Lawrence, is that Lindsey Graham took off almost all of August. He went golfing. He even got a tan. But now he can find the urgency. One, he's betraying his commitment to the people of South Carolina because he committed to not take up a nominee in an election year, but he's doing that. And now he can find the urgency to rush Supreme Court justice nomination through his committee and to the floor of U.S. Senate, but he can't find the urgency to address another COVID relief package. In this state, we've had 3,000 people to die. There are a number of small businesses that are on the verge of closing. And Lindsey said, over our dead bodies will we allow an extension of that federal unemployment benefit. Again, we need a senator who's going to fight for us and not fight against us. And Lindsey Graham has exhausted his time in Washington, D.C. He needs to go home to Seneca, or he can go to Mar-a-Lago or somewhere, but he has to stop representing the state of South Carolina.
In the old world of polling, and I'm not sure it still holds these days, when an incumbent was running below 50%, the conventional wisdom was the incumbent will lose because the undecided voters will go to the new choice. Lindsey Graham has been polling under 50% consistently. He's now up at 48 with you. You're tied at 48. That's a very, very, very bad poll for an incumbent. In the time left in this campaign, do you believe you have the resources and the campaign team and the ground troops you need in South Carolina to actually pull this off?
Lawrence, the momentum is on our side. You know, right now, I am living rent-free in Lindsey Graham's head right now because he understands that the people of South Carolina want something different. It's been consistent in our polling that 57, 58% of folks want somebody new to be their U.S. senator. And they're going to get somebody who's going to focus on them and fight for them. Lindsey just wants to sit with Sean Hannity every night or fly around Air Force One or golf with the president. I want to do the work of the people here in South Carolina.